Okay, okay. Can you just raise your hands for me? I can see you all. Raise your hands if you want to be successful, please. Raise your hands if you want to be successful. Fantastic. Please keep your hands up if you already are successful. Okay, so the hands go down. Okay, fabulous. I want you to do another thing for me. Raise your hand if you think you have confidence. If you've got confidence. You can't go halfway. You've got to go all the way if you're confident, okay? All right, fantastic. Keep your hands up if you think you're confident enough to come up here and do what I'm doing. Well, you're not, because I'm here. Okay, so here's the thing. Every single one of you in here has a story to tell. And part and parcel of that story is about being confident enough to be able to come up and share it with individuals, whether it's on a stage or one-to-one. Now, is there anybody by a show of hands who'd be too afraid to come up here? Just show me, just raise your hands. I know people can't see this on the video, but you'd be too afraid. Now, I get this all the time, and I think, what's the worst that could happen if you came to speak? And the worst that could happen is that you die. Okay? But as part and parcel of my work, I work with young people and I work with adults around the country, getting them to tell their stories, getting them to being able to get that story out. And the first thing I think is really important for people to understand is about confidence. Really having confidence. Now, how many of you here can swim? Who can swim? Okay. Now, if you can't swim, for those of you who are looking at me and trying to work out how old I am, I'm 45 next month. You don't have to tell me I look good for my age, I know, okay? Thank you. Now, I didn't learn how to swim until I was 30. Let me give you the backstory. I remember when I was in school, I was about 9 years old, and we were going swimming. And there I was, I had an afro at the time, bigger, I had hair, okay? And we went, and I had my shorts on, and we were walking out, going to the pool, and I remember going to the pool, and the teacher said to me, "Mcqueen." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going swimming, sir." He said, "You can't swim." I said, "I know, sir, that's why I'm going to learn." And some of you are uncomfortable about it, get over it. Okay, and I was like, oh my God, I'm the black boy, I'm going to drown. And I remember in the pool, and all these guys were swimming up and down and getting the certificates, and I was the one with the float. Remember kids with the float? Keep your bum up. Going out into the sea and loving the sea and jumping into the water. And I would just go, because I wasn't drowning for anybody. It's interesting because even though I'm really confident about being able to stand up and speak, I was really nervous about swimming. Now, imagine if you can, picture it back a couple of years now. Well, the woman who is now my wife. And I wanted to impress her. Because I wanted to show her, this guy is the guy you want. He has got swag, okay? He is suave. You want all of this, okay? This is going to be your chocolate boy wonder, okay? I really wanted to be able to impress her. And I remember, I would take her out places and we'd spend quality time. My dad always said to me, he said, "You know what, Dave? When you are," I'll do the exact words. When you're courting a young lady, for those of you who don't know what courting is, it's like dating and moving, I'll get over it. Okay, all right. So when you're courting a young lady, David, you have to treat her like a princess, and she will treat you like her prince. And if she's the lady that is for you, you treat her like a queen, and she will treat you like her king. You're looking at King Dave, okay? And for me, I wanted to really, really impress her, so I was really going out on the level of my game until one day she said to me, "Dave, let's go swimming." When I can walk to one end to the other, you don't know. I'll be like, "Yeah, you don't know." And I'm in the pool, and I'm walking in the pool, and I remember, for any of you who have ever been in London, let me give you a warning. If you can't swim, Harrow Leisure Centre. The deep end's in the middle. Nobody told me, okay? So she's in the pool, and she's swimming away, and I'm there, and I see her in the pool, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this lady looks so fine. She gets to the middle, and she calls me over, and everyone, she says, "Dave." Well, actually, she said, "Dave, come here." And I kind of like walked over because I couldn't swim, so I'm like walking over and, dipping my head in the water and coming back out again and dipping. And then I realized the water's getting a bit higher. There's no real problem. But I'm walking, and then I remember I take a step, and the next thing I remember, water. And I don't know whether I prayed or I farted, right? Something happened, okay? But I pushed through, and no word of a lie, I just screamed, guys. I screamed. I'm in the pool like this, okay? Making waves. My wife, she grabs me around the waist. I'm looking at the lifeguard. I was like, "Why didn't you come and save me?" She pulls me to the... Now, interesting, a number of years later, we went to Dubai. We got an all-expenses paid trip, Mum was watching, and I got cramp. And I fell in the pool. And again, my arms and legs are all up. My wife has got to come and save me. She says, "Dave, I'm going to have children. And when we have children, we're going to all go swimming as a family. And I'm going to be in the shallow end, and I'm going to be teaching them how to swim. And you're going to be in the deep end, and you're going to be drowning, and I'm going to leave you, and you're going to die." So I thought, okay, you know what, Dave, you've got to do something about this. So when my first daughter was born, I remember going to go swimming. And this guy was sitting in a wheelchair, and he had no limbs underneath his knee. Now, I didn't say this out loud, I swear down, but I'm going to tell you as I see it. So I looked at this guy, and in my mind, He looked at me and he's like, you think I can't swim, don't you? And you know when your voice goes high when you're really here learning how to swim? And he shared a really poignant story with me. He told me that he had been involved in a really bad car accident. And in the car accident, the only way they could get him out of the car is that they had to cut him out of the car. And so that's why he lost the use of his lower limbs. And his friends saw him and knew obviously he was quite sad and depressed and obviously his life had changed. But one friend in particular said to him, you know what? There are individuals who are out there who are blind, who are deaf, who have one limb, one arm, and they have learned how to swim. So what's your excuse? Why are you holding yourself back? And he said something to me before I went to do that lesson. He said, you know what? He said, the story that you put in your mind about how you can achieve or do well in the swimming pool is one you have to change. If you think you can do really well, you will do really well. And that day I learned how to swim. That day I learned how to swim. Now let me ask you a quick question. When I gave you that story, how many of you started to imagine that story in your head? How many of you started to picture the events that were going on in your head? Okay? They have ideas about what we want to do for the future, how we want to change the world, how we want to do things differently. But we have to have the confidence in order to be able to share that story. If you don't believe in the story, no one else is going to believe in the story. And the second thing I want to say to you is when you are really sure about what those stories are, is that you have to take action and do it. So let me show you. Who here is good at listening? Who's good at listening? Who's good at listening? Ah, good. I see you all are nervous now. You don't want to put up your hands, do you? Okay. For those of you who don't know what your right hand is, it's this one, okay? Let me just help you. So do your right hand out in front like this and do the same with your left hand. Everybody, your right and left hand. Shake it like it smells good in here. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Now what I want you to do is form a circle with this hand, but keep shaking that hand. Form a circle like this. Slowly, is to take your right hand really slowly. Take your right hand really slowly, and I want you to, I said your chin. Ah. Now, even though I can't see many of you out here, I know some of you did this, like, you know, Dave can't see me. Some of you at the back, like, what's he going on about, you know? You followed what I did as opposed to what I said. And that is one of the key things about ideas. You have to act on them. You have to take action. And it's really important that you are able to create in your mind a space that your story is valid. To get my first TED experience, because I met a guy called Ben Saunders, who was the youngest Briton to ski solo to the North Pole. And as a result, we were talking together. I was telling him about the work I was doing with young people. He was telling me about his preparation and what for. Well, he had done the North Pole and he was preparing to go to the South Pole. And he was telling me about the organizer of TED, who was organizing TED Global in Tanzania that year. And I was able to get a fellowship. I'm now a TED Fellow. Which is a nice irony, being a TED Fellow on stage. But I was able to be a TED Fellow and go to Tanzania. And when I was there, I learned many stories and I met some fantastic people. I actually remember I walked around the corner and I bumped into this guy. And I was, oh, sorry. And then I realized it was one of the founders of Google. And I was like, oh my God, what do you say? Hey, nice software. I didn't know what to say, but it was nice to meet him. But it created a point of stories are quite powerful. And your stories are quite powerful. But how do you take them and move them forward unless you believe in them? And I had an opportunity, because from the time I was small, I always wanted to be on television. I wanted to be on Blue Peter, until I realized you had to swim to be on Blue Peter, so that kind of like killed that dream. But I realized that if you want to be able to do something and you really believe in the idea, here's what luck is for me. Luck is about being able to have the talent, have that sense of self-belief. And then I was quite lucky in a way. I just remember just before my 40th birthday, a year before my 40th birthday, I said, by the time I'm 40, I want to reach millions of young people through my work. And I don't care what it's online, on television, whatever, and I want to do something. And I sent out an email to my friends, and I said, look, I'm looking to see this opportunity. What can I do? And I got a response back from a friend of mine who was saying to me that there was an audition going for Channel 4. And I went to this audition for Channel 4, and I'm not going to lie, I walked into this room, age 39. Everybody in the room was like, I am, no, not really, I'm joking. Okay, and being in that a role, presenting a show called Vocation, 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 made by the same issue. And I was able to work with 10 teenagers around the world, around the UK, helping them to find media to go and present a show for their entrepreneurial channel called Virgin Media Pioneer. Route into business was I was a big fan of two people, Anita Roddick and Richard Branson. And I've always loved the idea of being able to reach Richard Branson. And one day I was doing this show, and then the guys in Virgin Media said, you know what, there's an opportunity to interview Richard Branson. Do you want to go? So I paused for a minute. And then I came back, I was like, hell yeah. And I had an opportunity to meet him. I remember going to his house in Oxford and finding out about his own story. What was it that really drove him? There was some stuff that we shared offline that I'm not going to tell you, that's none of your business, that's just between me and Richie. But the fact was, is that we had this fantastic conversation. It was amazing to learn his story because it inspired me. And again, I went with him to South Africa, and last week I was able to interview him as part of the Virgin Media program that they have for startups again last week. Now I'm like, oh my God, to my family, I've met this guy 4 times now. This is absolutely amazing. And some people say to me, you know, how is that possible? And I will say to you, to be honest with you, I was just there at the right time. I was there at the right time. And it's about being able to step out and recognize that your story, how you want to change things, is going to be really important. Part and parcel of being on that show, I was able to meet a young guy called Jamal Edwards. Fantastic guy. He runs a channel called SBTV, one of the largest online youth broadcasters in the UK. And it was amazing to see how this young guy was really driven and has disrupted the way that music is consumed online. And as a result of being able, and I think it's absolutely critical that you understand that your story is, you do not have to be a millionaire. You do not have to be a person on a stage like it is here, like what we're doing here. But you have to believe enough that your story does count. Because if you think about it, have a conversation with people here, you're telling part and parcel of who you are. And know that you are worth it. You are worth it. Your story does count because somebody wants to hear about what it is. Well, you are going to die eventually, okay? But you're not going to die if you have to be able to share your story, whether on self-belief in that, because your story does count. And if we have the opportunity, I'd love to hear what your story is. Thank you very much.